Hello, everyone, and welcome to part 3 of the conservatorship training. My name is Nicole Westfall, and I'm an attorney in the Grand Traverse, Leelanau County area. Today, we will be discussing the ins and outs of filing an inventory in a conservatorship case. Now, at this point, there has been a petition for a conservatorship. The hearing has been scheduled. A guardian ad litem has been appointed and done their investigation, and it has been deemed appropriate that there should be a conservator appointed for this individual. You have received your letters of conservatorship. You've started figuring out what assets the ward has, and you need to turn in an inventory. And you're thinking, what the heck is an inventory? When is it due? How do I do this? Well, that's where this training comes in. I will discuss with you today how to fill out the inventory and the do's and don'ts that come with that. First, the inventory is a list of all of the assets that protected individuals own. Protected individual is the person that you are the conservator for. So this ranges from something as large as their home or retirement accounts, all the way to something down as small as $5 in a savings account or their personal effects. The inventory is due 56 days from the time you get your letters of conservatorship. So I would recommend that you find a date calculator and place that date on your calendar so that you don't miss this deadline. The inventory is very important, and it determines your starting number for your first accounting, which will be addressed in the next video. So what I want to do today is take a look at the inventory form and walk through how to fill this out and the little details that are necessary to file a successful inventory form that will not be rejected by the county you're filing it in. We always love that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and I have popped up here a inventory sheet that is blank. Okay. So we have here the inventory for conservatorship, the state of Michigan probate court. Here is where you would put your county. So say, for example, we would do Traverse City, right? Or Grand Traverse. Or we would do Leelanau. This is your first filing, so you would not click the amended button. You would put your case number and your judge, the court address, and the court telephone number. Okay. Now, the next thing that you would do is you would read this. That's important. The conservator must serve this completed inventory on all interested persons that are required by Michigan Court Rules 5.105 and 5.125. Then the conservator must complete a proof of service. We have this over here, and we're going to discuss this in a little bit. So we would put down in the matter of Jane Smith, and you would put I, so I, Nicole Westfall, the conservator, submit the following as a complete and accurate inventory of all the assets of the estate, including the fair market valuations, as of the date of qualification as conservator. I have listed on this inventory and property that protected individual owns jointly or in common with others, including the type of ownership. Now, this paragraph is really important because as you see here, it says, including fair market valuations as of the date of qualification, okay, as conservator. So these prices or values rather that you're going to be putting down here are what they were worth at the date that you were appointed conservator. So if you were appointed conservator on January 25th, 2023, then anything that you list here is going to be the value of that property as of January 25th, 2023. So say, for example, if you have a bank account and you get a statement and it ends on January 31st, well, then you're going to have to go through and do some math and determine what the value was on January 25th. Sometimes bank statements will have these listed as like a running balance, and sometimes they don't. So you have to actually go through and subtract and make sure that you have the accurate amount. So over here we have personal property and real property description. So if the property is owned by both a protected individual and others, you specify the type of ownership in the description and check the box in the column, total value of property. If the property has been used to secure a loan, show the nature and amount of the lien. And then there's definitions on the next page, which we're going to go through. So basically what this means is that, say that you have a home, right? And then say there's a $50,000 lien on it, or a mortgage rather, and then say that the property is worth $100,000, then the total value of the property without reduction for the lien is $100,000. But you can see that the person actually only has 50,000, right? So that's just for the court's knowledge. Okay, but then say you had a bank account, which you would obviously not list like this, but this is for purposes of this video. Say the bank account had $10,000 in it, right? You would list it like this, and so on and so forth. And I actually have a real inventory that I'm going to be going over with you as well. But this is just the blank account. I'm sorry, the blank inventory. And down here, you'll see it says total assets. And then you're declaring that the contents of this document is true. So if you had an attorney, they would be doing this form for you. But if you don't, which is probably why you're watching this video, then you would do your date, your signature, your name, address, and telephone here. Okay, so attached to the inventory, you have definitions. So real property means land, including a building or house that is built on the land. So that would be a home or a vacant property. You have personal property, means everything that a person owns except real property. So personal property includes bank accounts, checking accounts. It also includes IRAs, stocks, bonds, annuities, anything that a person owns, literally anything that a person owns that has a financial value attached to it. And all the way down to, for example, personal property, which you would maybe put a couple $1,000s on, or if somebody has a substantial amount of wealth, say they had some furs, say they had some heirlooms, say they had some really nice jewelry, then you would list that separately as well. So you're listing all this real and personal property here in this column. And then when you're listing the property, you're going to provide the legal description of the property and the name of any other owner. Now, the legal description of the property is just going to be the address of the property, right? So say, for example, this is my address. So I'm going to say, this is my office address, home located at 3281 Racket Club Drive, Unit C, Traverse City, Michigan, 49684, right? So that is sufficient for an address. Now, if I would say joint owner, or I would say single owner, right? So that means that the ward owns it by themselves. That's what the court wants to see. Then the next thing you would say is that we're listing all the personal property, right? But that might include a financial institution. So the address of financial institution shall be that of the main headquarters or the branch that you use most frequently. Normally what I would just do is I would just say, you know, Huntington Bank, and then you would list the address for Huntington Bank, right? Something that's in Traverse City, okay? So that's all that those mean. Then next, it says do not provide financial account numbers on this form. That's really important because this form gets delivered to everybody that is an interested person. And so we don't want to put Huntington Bank, the address that they have that account in, and then also the account number, right? We're not trying to give all that information. What I typically do, and what you'll see on my form, is I usually do account number, and then I do a hashtag / like the last 4 digits, right? If for some reason this says that you absolutely need to put an account number down, then you would put that on form MC97, which is a different form that you could use to fill out when you're filing a conservatorship. And that's just where you put a person's name with their address, or I'm sorry, with their date of birth and their social security number. So it's just protected information that doesn't get sent to all of the parties. Okay. So then examples of items that should be listed separately. So we have automobiles, jewelry, bank accounts, antiques, furniture, prepaid burial contracts, life insurance, annuities, mutual funds, stocks and bonds, like I listed before, and then any other individual item of high value, such as a fur coat, right? So we just touched on that briefly earlier. Then examples of items that can be listed in categories. This was where we would put personal property. Personal property would constitute household items such as dishes, flatware, curtains, linens, utensils, clothing, furniture, multiple copies or pieces of a specific item that have the same value, such as stocks and bonds, right? Because we're trying to just group everything together as cohesively as we can to get an accurate number. Obviously here we're going to show the nature and amount of a lien, if that is something that we need to put on there. If the value of personal property is determined by appraiser, then you need to put their name and address and a description of the property appraised. And property that the protected individual owns jointly or in common with others must be listed along with type of ownership. Okay, so those are your instructions. I want you to see now, this is an inventory that I've actually done last year for a client. As you see here, this was for Grand Traverse County. I've obviously deleted the names. I put the address and the phone number. Matter of Jane Smith. So I'm Nicole Westfall, I'm the conservator. So this individual had, and I did change the checking account numbers, but this is what the value of this is what a inventory would look like. So you have the Huntington checking account ending in 1234. There's the actual address. Again, another Huntington savings account, a Chase checking account, a JP Morgan IRA, a 2010 Ford Flex, an AIG life insurance, and personal property. Okay, so we'll go through all of these. So this person was appointed as a conservator, and then I, as the attorney, have done the inventory and the accounting for them. So I went through, and this would have been the date that she was appointed. This is the amount that was on the savings accounts or the checking accounts that I went through and figured out. Okay. Then the JP Morgan IRA, I actually got I believe that JP Morgan IRA is quarterly. So for this one, I went through and I got the quarterly statements, and the closest month to that account, or the closest amount to the date that she was appointed conservator is the date that I used for that 187.07. So say that she was appointed conservator in April, then I would have used like the first quarter, January, February, March, I would have used that as the starting number. Okay, so then we had a 2010 Ford Flex. What I asked my clients to do is to go to kbb.com, which is the Kelley Blue Book, and I asked them to get a valuation from that website. That is something that we use in bankruptcies and things like that to submit to the trustee. And so the KBB value tends to be a very reliable source. I know sometimes people wonder where they're going to come up with that number. So KBB is a very good source for that. She also had life insurance. This life insurance policy, I believe, was the payout value of the policy. It's a very small one, which we ended up getting rid of. And then personal property, we just estimated. So she lives at Glen Eagle. It's an assisted living home. She really just has an apartment. She doesn't have too much items. And so we just kind of did an estimate for that. Sometimes you have to estimate on the personal property. You're not always going to, have like an estate sale or something that you can actually get an appraiser to come out and tell you what the exact value is. You'll just throw down maybe $500, $1,000, $2,000 on there. So these were our total assets, were $73,682.39. And then I just did that for purposes of this video, but that is the information that I would put on there. And then the instructions are the same. Okay. So that would be the inventory that I would submit. Now I remember with this particular inventory, I did mess something up. That happens. If that does happen and the court returns it to you, then you would just use the same inventory. You would mark amended, and then you would resubmit it and hope for the best on that. The second piece that you need to do with the inventory is a proof of service. So here you would type in the county, the file number, who the matter's for, and then here you would just type in the inventory. Okay. And then you would say, according to court rule, I serve by first class mail. And you would type in each person that is an interested party in this matter. Now, most of the time, the interested person will be first in their address, right? And then you may serve the mom of that person. You may serve the dad of that person, maybe the attorney of record for somebody else, maybe Social Security, right? So you just need to look and see what that person receives, who the interested people are, brothers, sisters, etc. And those are the people that you serve the inventory. This is kind of like a check for them to make sure that you're doing your job, right? So it's not just the court. The interested people also get a chance to review your inventory as well. If you are serving somebody in person, then you would do according to court rule, I serve by personal service. Papers described above, again, that'd be the inventory, and then whoever you served in person. So if for some reason you did serve the ward in person, then you could put that here. All right, and then you just put your date and your name and your signature, and then you would submit that to the court along with your inventory. So the last thing that I wanted to touch on in regards to an inventory, we've obviously talked about how to fill it out when it's due, 56 days after you're appointed a conservator. But the last thing is hunting down the assets. Now, I know that this can be really difficult sometimes. You may not have all the paperwork, you may not have a good connect. The person that you're a conservator for may have dementia, right? So a couple of ideas that I have, first is always talking to like the closest person that's connected to the ward, which could be a brother, a sister, an aunt, an uncle, a mom, a dad. See what documents that they have. The second idea is if they're staying in a nursing home or assisted living home, talk to the manager there. They may have some information for you because they've been working with this person for quite some time, and they might know what some of their assets are. And the last thing that you can also do is pull a credit report. So you have the person's, date of birth, and you have their social security number. Pull a credit report, see what they have going on, see what their assets are, see what their debts are. Something on there may trigger an idea as to what they have. And then finally, if they have a home, you're just going to have to go and ransack their home per se. So go to their home and try to find as many documents as you can. And you're going to have to look at different account numbers, see if they're still open. It's a lot of work. Being a conservator is a lot of work, and you have to go to banks and close down different bank accounts and open up bank accounts in the conservator's name. And these are all various things that go into the inventory, and really getting this person all of their things and their assets into order. And that's all that is kind of wrapped up with the inventory, is really hunting down assets and closing bank accounts and opening a new conservator account. The court is there for you to ask questions. They cannot give legal advice, so that's not always something that they can help you with, but they can at least guide you in the right direction. What I would always recommend is that if you get stuck or you feel like you cannot complete a task, or you're kind of confused on something, is to start with the court. But ultimately, attorneys are a really good resource for you to file inventories and file accountings, because we do this quite often, and we have some really good ideas on it. So that would wrap up the inventory portion of that. So I will go ahead and stop sharing my video. And again, we will be moving on to the accounting next. The inventory is just the first fun step in determining a ward's assets. Thank you.